Hello and welcome to Gabbit Media, I'm Grant Habit and today we're going to be sculpting a weird squid alien. This is a beginner's tutorial but I'm expecting some understanding of the interface and it's meant as a sort of follow along session. This is all part of a much bigger series and there'll be several more to follow. Also check out my website gabbit.co.uk for more free courses just like this one, and you could get across to the Discord server and show us your creations. So in Blender it's a good idea to go File, New and then go to the Sculpting, just makes life easier. I'm going to pull out my brushes so you can see them, and my shortcut keys will be down the bottom here. So let's turn our brush to dye and topo. We can actually click it up here, but I like to go to the workspace settings just over here and down to dye and topo. Let's open that tab up. Now if you start going straight away with this, you get very scrunchy up topology as it's retopologizing this ball here. And you can see this ball is much denser than this, and that's why it's going all weird. Let's undo that. I prefer to work in constant detail. So constant detail there, and if we paint on it now, it's even worse. So the resolution of 3 is very low. Let's undo that. I find if I change it to about 15, it tends to be very similar to the ball, and therefore we don't get so many anomalies. And it's a great starting point. We can actually go down to remesh and detailed flood fill, and that makes it all have the same resolution of 15. That way when we paint, it doesn't distort it too much. So the best place to start is with the snake hook, and the most fun place to start. Nice big brush and get the basic shape. So let's make our alien. I'm going from side view, just look at my Cartesian coordinates if you get confused, and pull this up slightly and create a sort of an egg shape. Shift to smooth. So keep smoothing out, keep moving around until you get the sort of shape you want. Okay, so that's our basic shape, very simple. Actually, I'm going to pull him forwards slightly. So grab and pull that forwards, smooth out, so it's sort of got a bum there. Now we're going to squash this bit in at the bottom. So I actually click outside my blob and pull upwards. That sort of makes sense. You get used to how you use the brushes just after lots of use. And constantly using the smooth brush to smooth things out. So he's kind of got a bum here. And this is his face. So brush a bit smaller and we'll make some sort of eye area up here. Something a bit like that. You can see this is why you need to rotate around your object quite regularly, so I can pull those into position so they're a bit more like eyes. And currently I'm getting a bit of lag with my version of Blender, especially when using the snake hook tool and the grab brush. But I find as long as you just click and hold for a moment, it will work. It might even be Windows ink. That's a classic Windows ink issue. But if I turn it off, it just won't work. So always a pain using graphics tablets. So constantly smoothing out, so somewhere around there, and sort of move them forward so there's a rounded shape at the back there. So that's where its eye sockets are going to go. Smooth that bit out a little bit. And let's start thinking about the tentacle body shape leg things. So I'm going to go right to the top here, make my brush a tiny bit smaller and just pull out a little bit like this. I've still got mirror on, and that's important. Just double check that you've got symmetry and X mirror. That should be by default under the symmetry options. And from top view, so I can tap on the Z, I can go right to top view now, brush a bit smaller, and then I can start doing some tentacles. Now can you see they're slightly above the body? So I'm going to undo that and pull this down slightly. So brush slightly bigger, pull that down and out, and that's my starting point, you see. That's why it's really important to move around your object and get the starting point right so we're roughly in line. We can sort out the flat base later, but now when I go to top view I've got something to grab hold of. Let's try again and see how that works. Can you see? Now it's level with that because I had that bit sticking out already. So when you're sort of protruding with the snake hook tool, it's best to have some starting point. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'll do the same here. I'll just pull a little bit out, somewhere around there, pull that out there, make sure it's sort of level, and it isn't, so I need to pull this base up a little bit, I think, and then pull these down a bit. Keep moving around your object, as I keep saying. And about there. Now when I go to top view by clicking the Z, I can then move that out. Now those are too thick, so I'll just undo that, bring my brush a bit smaller, and somewhere around here. And I'm just creating a swirl. Now we're looking good. This one's a bit thicker. You can actually make it thinner just by using the smooth brush. As long as you have a fairly low resolution, you can just scrub across it with the smooth brush and it makes it a bit thinner. So we're trying to make these similar size. I can go fatter with this one with the inflate brush as well, like that. Let's have a quick look how he's looking. Oh, fantastic. Let's have one more coming out here. Back to my snake hook tool. Pull a little bit out there. Down a touch. So we've got our starting point. Back to top. Squiggly tentacle. Now that one's very fat. I might just... Well, let's try the smooth, see how that works. It is reducing it a fair bit, and maybe that's working actually. That's about right. Can you see my back one's a bit high now, and this one's a bit flat? Probably the way I've been smoothing it from the top. So I want to inflate from the top, like this. Let's have another look from the side. Maybe a touch more. Not too bad. Smooth from the side a bit. Round it out a bit more. Can you see it's a bit flat? A bit more inflation from the top. Maybe round these sides here as well. That's looking better. It's a bit splatted there, but that's good, I think. Now the back one, let's just look from front view. Actually, they're looking pretty good. So that's why you've got to keep moving around your object, making sure they're all good. Okay, now the front one I can't use mirror. That is the front, isn't it? Yes. So I'm going to have to turn mirror off. So symmetry, turn mirror off, and now start working with my grab brush and pull this out. Don't panic that we're not in mirrored mode at the moment. We can turn it back on and things will keep mirroring. It's just that we can't really work on this one tentacle. That is something you have to be aware of when you're doing your workflow, is using the mirror at the right times. So one there, let's pull out a little bit there. It's going to have a sort of taily bit. About there. To the top. Squiggly tentacle. Not too bad. That one's a bit high, isn't it? Now let's say you've done a bit of work somewhere else and then you didn't realise that this was too high. What you'll have to do is make your brush nice and big. You can use masking to mask off other areas if they're causing problems, but generally I think you'll be alright just pulling this down. I mean, I could have just undone, is that a word? And then redid this. My English is not doing very well today. But in case you've done something else and you couldn't undo for some reason. So that's how you can sort of sort it out gently, just sort of tapping away with your brush. And we're there. We've got a sort of squid monster thing happening. Okay, he's looking pretty fun. Very symmetrical at the moment, and at the end we kind of sort out the symmetry and make them all wobbly and weird. So let's sort out the mouth. Nice big brush again, and grab the middle there. Oh, symmetry back on. So undo that. I often forget to do that. Symmetry back on, and pulling in for the mouth. Nice big area. Move in a bit, so it's going to sort of have a mouth that goes in and up. And he's going to I'll try and make him look a bit evil. So sort of mouth like this. His tentacle looks a bit weird, like it's coming out of his mouth. So squish that down there a bit. And squish it down there. Now, how's that looking? Might have to move the mouth up away from the tentacle. Easy enough. Just drag with the snake hook. So he looks a bit worried at the moment, but we'll get there. There we go. He's going to have some fangs in there soon. And he'll certainly look less worried and more hungry. So let's plump that out a bit. Move that back in. And just keep looking around, making sure we're good. Not too bad. Brush a bit smaller and I'll smooth these areas out. Looks like he's got a weird beard though. Okay, let's think about the eyes now. Let's just get the shape right first. Make them nice and rounded. That lag is problematic around here actually. Smooth that out. Might try and put a bug report in, because that is very difficult to sculpt when it's such a delay. So I move my brush and then there's quite a delay there. Right, so about there, draw brush, create a dent, control, to hold control down does the opposite. And we got some nice eyeball shapes there. And we're already starting to see a beautiful little character. So you could sculpt the eyeballs in there by just going to the inflate brush or something like that, and then inflating this in and getting an eyeball like that. That's a very lazy way, and it's quite unproductive because it's very awkward to do your eyes around there and move the eyeball. It's just a pain, believe me. So you're better off going to layout mode. So click on the plus sign for your workspaces, general layout. Into here, shift right click to move our cursor to that point, and we're going to add an icosphere. So we can go add menu here, or shift A is the shortcut. Mesh, not an icosphere actually, a UV sphere, that's better because that has the right topology. We want to rotate this in the x-axis 90 degrees, RX90, and it rotates it around, and then we've got a sort of eyeball there at the front. Let's scale this down so it's the right size, somewhere around here, and just move it into position. G to grab, S to scale, moving it into place. Somewhere around there, G to grab, yeah, about there. So we've got our eyeball and we want to copy it to the other side. We could just copy it with Shift D and move it across, but you might not have it in quite the right place, so let's actually mirror it. We go to the modifiers down here, add modifier, mirror, and it looks like nothing's happened, but it has got a mirror right on top of itself because it's mirroring in the x-axis around its pivot point there. What we want to do is have a mirror object, so we can use our pipette there and choose our monster. That's now our mirror object, so it's taking the center point of our monster and therefore mirroring it across. That's great, so we've got our eyeballs. Nice and simple. So let's go back to sculpting and start sorting out the shape around the eyeballs. And I'm having a problem, I can't sculpt, and now I'm sculpting on my eyeballs. So let's undo that. What I should have done is selected my monster first. So for now, let's just go back into layout mode, click on our monster and back to sculpting. I'll show you another way of how to do that later. So let's continue sculpting. Now we're going to do a few more details around the eyes. Somewhere around there. And back to the snake hook, and let's start modifying our shape a little bit more. So we need the middle bits down so it looks more angry. These bits down as well, these bits up a touch. Just moving things around into place. So he's got a scary face. It's not looking that scary yet. But yes, so to get that angry expression, we need a bit more in the eyebrows just here, a bit more shape. So we'll plump those up with the inflate, brush a bit smaller, plump those up, and start pulling things around again into position. It's important that you do this with a low resolution to start with. You can smooth out later. But if you've gone too high, you get sort of very blobby results. Let's have a look at the back here as well. Make sure that's around our eyeball a bit more. So smooth it out, keep smoothing, and you can see the eyeball coming through there. So that's when we can start inflating. So they're nice and round, as if the eyeball is packed into them. Around there. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now have a good look around and think, is this what you want? Now I'm not so sure I like the position of the eyes, so I'm going to go back to layout mode, click on my eye and press G to grab and pull them in quite close to each other, about there. And actually pull them up a bit. Yeah, I think he needs to be taller, so grab him up like this. Back to, select my monster, back to sculpting, and let's edit our shape with the snake hook. And we just have to splat it around the place. I want to sort of thinner in here. There we go. I don't want him smiling. Use your smooth brush. Right, he's still looking very worried, so let's squish these in here. Squish that down there. Forward, plump those out a bit. Use the smooth brush. Let's use the inflate there, in fact. Where's the inflate gone? There you are. Inflate those backs there. They're almost touching each other in the middle, so you can just inflate and then smooth. And that will, aha, now we've got the expression. That's what I'm looking for, that sort of, aha, I'm going to get you expression. Sorry about my acting. Okay, let's get the front shape here though. Might need to move this bit forward. We want it fairly flat at the front. These bits can come forward a bit, but fairly flat. Bigger brush. And I'm going to smooth the nose out a bit more. Okay, and pull this crease down. Smaller brush, pull that crease down. Yeah, we're getting there. Okay, let's create a nose. I'm going to use the crease brush now. And sort of create a nostril bit here. See how that looks. Okay, I need to smooth that out first a bit more, and then try again. Okay, I might need to up my resolution in a second, but we're certainly getting there for this monster. Let's do a bit more on the lips. So draw brush. Not looking too bad, but a bit bigger. It's better to do these things with one stroke rather than having a small brush and sort of doing this and trying to build up that way. I'll do that. Get a big brush and then sort it out with those brushes. And then build it with the right size brush. So here, I'm building with the wrong size brush there. I'll undo that. Bigger brush. So you've got a big lip. And then a combination of that and the smooth brush. Perfect. Right, let's go back to the snake hook and pull the shape in a touch around here. There. Looking a bit more sinister now. His bottom lip is coming out way too much. That's why you've got to move around your object. Otherwise you can make mistakes like I just did there. Just getting a sort of rough shape there. Now what I should have done is I should have dug in a lot more with my insides of my mouth. I should have done that, certainly. So let's quickly go to the draw brush. And it's a bit more awkward like this, but with control down we have to sort of look inside and draw inwards. It's quite clever these days. It used to be that you could draw and then hit the other side, but I don't think you can anymore. I think they've sort of developed that a bit. Or maybe I'm just talking about rubbish. Okay, that's a bit better. Now he's got a mouth. That's going nowhere. Okay, so we've got a relatively good shape of our alien here. I might just pull that, oops, with the snake hook tool, pull that in a bit. And just smooth out. Looking good. The eyes might be a bit too wide at the back here. So it's a good idea, before you go to any detailed phase, make sure you've got your shape right. And carefully do this bit. I don't want to give him that fun expression. I want him to have a scary expression. Maybe just a bit more indentation there and a bit more plumpness around there, just a touch. Smooth that out a bit. Not too bad. It's tough with the eyes. They can look a bit blobby if you're not careful. But I think we're getting there now. So at this point you might want to add a bit more detail. Crease brush helps with that bit of detail. You can sort of come in here and add a bit of character and detail to those lips. Maybe something like that. You may want to up your resolution. I try and keep it as low as possible for as long as possible. And the lips are a bit wide, so let's get our draw brush, crease in a little bit around here. Using the draw brush with control to crease in and the smooth brush to smooth out. There we go, that's a bit better. And the same around here. Again, the lower the resolution, the the easier it is to make big adjustments to your shape. So start off with a low resolution and stick at it for as long as possible. Okay, so we've got our character. I notice I haven't gone any bit above 15 resolution on my constant detail, and it looks just fine. Now let's add a tongue and some teeth and maybe some dripping saliva. Now the best way to do that is into layout mode and actually create new objects for the teeth. So shift right click, somewhere around there. Now teeth are fairly easy to model, so you'd probably just want to model a tooth. But if you're very new to Blender and you don't know much about modeling and you just want to sculpt, then you can add an icosphere. So shift A, mesh, icosphere. Let's scale that down just a touch. And then you can sculpt your teeth from there. So we want it to be the starting size of the teeth, somewhere around there, and maybe just grab it into position around there. Forward just a touch, about there. That's great. Now when I go back to sculpting now, I can sculpt on this model with the snake hook tool. Let's turn dent topo on and make a tooth. I can then press the smooth button to smooth that out, and we've got a sort of tooth thing going on here. I might need to move the position a bit more, but I can probably just smooth that out at the back. Yeah, somewhere around there. So snake hook and then smoothing out, it does an okay job. I'll make my brush a bit bigger and then they can sort of be a bit more fang-like. Now it's got X mirror on, so I'll turn that off for a moment. So let's just pull that tooth into position. Shift to smooth when you need to, somewhere around there. It looks kind of fun with just one fang. Quite like it. At any point, if we go too thin, we can press the inflate brush and inflate it out, because the smooth brush at this low resolution does make a huge difference to its volume. If we need to, we can press / to isolate that and then work on it on its own. And you might want to turn the resolution up just a touch. In fact, I'll turn it up to 25 in this case. Remember, you've turned it up though. Then we'll get a smoother tooth. So I'm just inflating the end there and sorting out my mesh slightly with the smooth brush. Right, / again to come back out of isolation mode, and then we can tidy up a little bit with the snake hook. There we go, not too bad. So now what if I want to click on my monster and start sculpting now? Well, the way to do that is Alt left click, but it's not working in this case. What we have to do is go to the edit menu and turn off lock preferences. Now if I press Alt left click, it selects that object. I need to turn it back to sculpt mode though, over the top here. So now I can Alt left click on different objects. So there we go, I've got the quad sphere there, which is my character, and the normal sphere, which is the eyeball. And here I've got my icosphere and my quad sphere. I'm having to Alt left click in weird places though, so you might just have to tap a few times to find it. Probably another slight bug there. But Alt and then left click. You should be able to select different objects as long as you've got lock object modes off. However, let's go back into layout mode quickly. Select our tooth, which I can't seem to select at the moment. Strange bug. Okay, let's hide our monster. Back into object mode. Unhide my monster. H to hide, Alt H to unhide. And now I can select my objects. I think it's because they were both in sculpt mode, it was finding it very difficult to select the different objects. So there are still glitches around the place. Now we can copy and paste this object. If you want it to be exactly the same size and shape, you can press Alt D and it will do a linked duplicate. And I can rotate that around the Z axis and move that into position. It's all a bit over the place though, but we can grab it and move it into position with G. But now when I edit this one, it will edit the other ones as well. So if you want them the same size, you can do that. Alt D, move that around so he's got some fangs up there, and just moving them into position. I'm trying out a couple of different positions, I think. And Alt D, the last one, smooth that over there. How are we looking? Not too bad, although these seem to be facing the wrong way. That's looking a bit better, I think. Maybe I'll move these across just a bit more. Now, if you're going a bit more detailed, you'd probably sculpt in some gums, and it would look a bit better with some gums, so you can do that. It's fairly straightforward. We're going to work on a tongue as well coming out here, and some drips of saliva. So I'll just quickly put those in now. Shift right click, Shift A to add, and then an icosphere. Scale that down, and that's going to be our tongue. I'm going to start labeling these so it doesn't get so confusing. Then I'm going to duplicate this, so Shift D, and move it over to here. Scale it down, and this is going to be our saliva. I'm going to press snapping on, and I can snap it to my face. So snapping there with the magnet, face, so it snaps to faces. And then now when I move it, press G to grab, it snaps to the face. Pretty much anyway. Let's turn snapping off now and grab it into position around there. It's going to be a drip of saliva coming down. And I'll duplicate that up there as well. And I might have one over here, but we'll see how we get on. I'll probably move that back into position once I've modelled the tongue. Okay, now we need them all in sculpt mode. So I'm Alt left clicking, and then I can choose the different parts, make sure they're all in sculpt mode. And it seems to be working now. That's good. So Alt left click, all in sculpt mode. Let's go to the sculpting workspace and start sculpting. So I've got my tongue selected at the moment, so let's start with that. Let's get a tongue shape with the snake hook tool. Make sure you turn dent topo on for each of your objects. And you probably want about 20 for these. They're fairly detailed objects. The teeth I had to go to 25, didn't I? So let's see how we get on with 20 with the tongue. I've got X mirror turned off now, haven't I? So I can just bring that out and move it into a rough position, and then start sculpting it around the shape. Probably a bit more of a pointy tongue. Keep moving around and make sure it follows the path of your face. It's going to go the other side of the tooth there, and up over the lip here. Right, and let's look how we're looking. Let's have a quick look. It's not looking too bad. I think probably needs to dangle down this way actually. There we go, that's better. And then inside here, don't panic about touching the rest of your objects because you can't. Because this is a separate object. So we can play around a fair bit with this. Remember to give it volume and shape that surrounds the other objects. That's not looking too bad. I did say about gums as well, didn't I? So let's Alt left click on our monster. There we go. Make sure we've got that selected. And into here with the draw brush, and let's do a sort of gum area. Oh, I can turn symmetry on here and just give it some gums. Oh, that's way too big though. Okay, let's go inside the mouth. A little bit tricky when it gets to this point. So you may be a bit lost when you're watching, but I'm inside the mouth now. There's the tongue there. But you'll understand it when you're modelling your own shape. And let's isolate with the / and see how our gums are looking. You can mask as well if you want to, a mask brush, but I find for beginners it's easier to steer clear of that because it can be a tiny bit confusing just when you're starting out. So there we've got some basic gums, and / to bring our other things back. Ooh, we're all over the place, and we're there. It's not too bad. We can do some gums at the top now. Draw brush. I'm going to indent here first, and then pull out here. Now because our teeth aren't mirrored, it's all a bit weird. Let's see what it's looking like with the other ones. They seem to be okay, to be honest. Maybe I should mirror the teeth. Back to layout mode. Click on a tooth. go to the Add modifier and Mirror. Then it's mirroring by itself, so we want to select the mirror object to be the monster. And there it is, the other side. Now we can delete that one. And we know it's a perfect mirror. I'll do the same for the other one. Sometimes you might want the mouth to be sort of weird and obscure and then not do the mirror. You can always apply it later and then separate these objects out. I might keep the other ones separate so we can sort of do that type of thing. So back to sculpt mode. Got my gums here. Want my crease brush to create a crease down here. And a little bit more volume at the back of my gums. Hopefully you can work out what's going on there. Now I'm still on 20 detail here, so I've gone up a bit for my base mesh, but we are going into more detailed areas. It's still very sort of chunky and blobby, isn't it? But that's okay. Okay, we're doing well. Let's sort out our spitballs, or saliva. Alt left click, choose the spit. Back into sculpt mode. Make sure we've got Dine Topo turned on. Got 20. Turn X mirror off, we don't need that. And just test, yep. Grab with the snake hook, and let's just pull that down here. Smooth it out. Now if you get to this point and it's all really thin and it's quite hard to work with, you can then use the inflate brush. And that will help you. Get that snake hook again. Give it some volume, and then sort of like a bubble at the bottom, so an inflate at the bottom. And now we're starting to get there. Looks like some saliva coming out, sort of. There we go, that's not too bad. It's a little bit blobby. Just use the smooth and maybe pull it in just a touch more with the snake hook. About there, now we go. Ah, yes. Got some saliva coming out there. Although it does seem to be sort of travelling this way too much. It probably needs to follow gravity more and come down this section here. I'll use the grab brush this time. So there's no need to add any more topology, so I'll just grab with the grab brush and pull it this way. Because the snake hook can distort your shape, of course, by adding new topology, whereas the grab brush doesn't add any. That's better. Just to smooth that out a touch there. Too much there. That's good. Now for the other ones, Alt left click. And that's the spit there. Dine Topo on. Don't worry about that error message, that's telling me there's a UV map. You don't need to worry about that. Snake hook this time. Moving around constantly. This is good practice of the snake hook tool, which can be awkward at times. But you just have to keep moving around into position. And this time following gravity a bit more. Then the inflate brush for the end. And then just last, maybe the grab tool this time. To curve that over the lips like that. Yay. Next one, Alt right click. Oh, we're in object mode, so change the sculpt mode, Dine Topo, ignore the message, and make sure mirror isn't on. Pull this into position. I smoothed too much there, so inflate brush. Want to inflate that end a fair bit. Grab brush, move that up into position. Bit of smoothing. It's not looking too bad. It looks a little bit forced, like weird maggots are coming out of his mouth. But I think we're sort of there. Alt left click to to select a different one, although I can't select that one. There we go, we've got a few errors here, haven't we? There it is. I think you just have to go near the center point, and that will help it out. There, maybe a tiny bit less, that's better. I think a bit more variation between them. And Alt left click on this one. There it is. And just smooth it out at the end there, that's better. Okay, so there we've got a very simple fang creature. Let's go back to layout mode and see what it looks like with smooth shading and see whether we need to add any more details. So left click, back into object mode, and then right click to shade smooth. And that's not too bad. The lower the resolution the better, because you might want to paint with this, or rendering speeds will be increased. If you want to upload to Sketchfab or another program, you need a low face count. This is still fairly high at 96,000, so I'll probably reduce that in a bit. If you want to reduce your objects, then the very easy way is to click on your object, use the modifiers, decimate. You can go quite low with this, so I'll try 0.2. It tells you the face count is down to 20,000, and it still looks alright, doesn't it? We can probably go a bit lower than that actually, 0.1. It's a very rough way of retopologizing. It wouldn't animate so well, wouldn't animate badly, but it gets the poly count down ready for rendering and things, and it still looks alright. Now make sure you're doing this once you're absolutely happy with your shape, because it can be destructive if you apply that decimate modifier. If you want to continue sculpting, you'll have to turn off the modifier in order to start sculpting again. Once you're happy, you might want to create a duplicate, because applying will actually make it that resolution. I'm going to just apply, and I'll do the same across the other bits of the model. You'll have to go back into object mode with them. Add modifier, decimate. Let's try 0.1 on this. It's not too bad. Apply, right click, shade smooth. That looks pretty good. Select my next object, back into object mode. Now I think with the decimator modifier on this one we won't be able to go as low, but let's try it. 0.2. That might be too far, maybe. 0.3. And I'll apply that, right click, shade smooth. It looks pretty good. Same with the teeth. Now it's coming up with an error there. It's saying it can't be applied to multi-user objects. So I've got two objects here that are sharing the same space, and you can't apply a modifier to it. So what I'll need to do is go to the object data down here, and then I can just click on this icon here, and that will make it its own non-linked item. When I go back to my modifier, I can then apply it. Let's try this one, add the modifier. And again, I can't apply that, so off to the object data, make it a separate object, back to the modifier and apply. This one we can decimate with the mirror on. That way we can get both of them at the same time. Apply that decimate, and I think I'll apply the mirror as well. Then if I wanted to move a fang, I could. Now you might want to go a bit further with the sculpt perhaps, and do sort of an eye raised, or give him a bit more character perhaps. Now you might feel as well your character is too symmetrical, so you might want to move things around. It is actually best to do that before decimating ideally, but if I go back into sculpt mode, even though he's been decimated, I can just move him around using the grab brush. We don't need topo on anymore, and we can just change his shape very slightly and give him a bit more adaptations. The other thing I want to do is, in layout mode, Shift A to add a mesh and then a floor. Just scale that to the right size. And then grab this into position. So 1 on the keyboard, grab that on the Z axis and move it into position, so we know where the floor is. And then back into sculpt mode. Don't worry that he's gone all blocky, because we can shade smooth in a second. And just make sure that he sits on the floor correctly. You can have bits that fall in under the floor, that's fine. That one was very high. You can still use the smooth brush, don't be afraid of it. And you can still use things like the inflate brush. The bigger your brush, the more influence it will have on your mesh, so you might want to go nice and big, so you get all of it at the same time. Be a bit careful not to move your mouth, otherwise you'll have to move all your other objects as well. It would have been a good idea to do the floor first before doing the whole model, but it doesn't matter doing it at this stage. There we go, having a couple in the air is quite nice really. I'm just messing up the symmetry slightly, so he's got more character. There we go. Back into layout mode, and then we can right click shade smooth, and we're back to where we were. Let's do a bit of shading. Into shading, I think you've got the shading tab with sculpt mode, so general shading if not, and we can have a bit of fun in Eevee with our object. I think for aliens it's a good idea to have a bit of subsurface scattering, so it's a bit like skin really. So turn the subsurf up just a touch, and let's make him green of course, a bit darker. You could even give him some emission and things as well. Subsurface, perhaps a bit yellowy, looking good already. So let's change the tongue, click on the tongue, new object, new material, and give that a red colour. Bit of subsurface scattering as well, and make your subsurf slightly pinky. Teeth can be white, so new object. Actually, do they need shade smooth? Right click shade smooth, yes they do. But slightly off white, maybe a bit yellowy. Sort of dirty sort of looking teeth. Somewhere around there. Select all your other teeth, and then select that one last, Control L, and we can link the materials and make them all the same material. Looking good. The saliva we want to be blue, so new. Light blue coloured saliva. Click on the other ones, so select the other ones, if I can select the other ones. God, I'm getting lots of glitches today. Let's try it up here then. Make this one the active object by selecting it last, and Control L, link materials. And we got our saliva there. The eyes are a little bit tougher. Click on an eyeball, into edit mode this time, and we're going to select these faces. So 3 to select face mode, just there, and block select those faces. Now into the material down here, and this has no new materials, so we can press a new one here, and you can see that material comes up there, and that's going to be our main eye material. But we're going to create a new one for the pupil. So new material, and that's created the slot there with that plus sign there, but it actually needs a material in it, so new material in there. And we're going to make this black. So that's the same over here, but we need to assign it to these faces. So we just press assign there, and it assigns this material to those faces. So that's how you select just one area. After that, you can have some fun with lighting. Let's go to rendered mode, and he looks a bit better there with some lighting. And we can add a few more lights in. Let's select that light. Oh, I'm in edit mode, so back to object mode, select that light. The easiest way then is to go to the lighting tab and click sun and choose a power of 1. And then you can put sun lamps, whoop, and then you can put sun lamps around him, Shift D to duplicate and point that back at him, Shift D to duplicate and point that back at him. So we've got 3-point lighting there, and this one will change to a nice bluey colour. This one to a nice reddy colour, and this one to a nice yellowy colour. And how cool is he looking? I'll just smooth shade these, so right click on those, smooth shade. Also, let's go to the rendered mode, bit of ambient occlusion, fill in those gaps, and a bit of screen space reflections. And he's looking great fun, isn't he? Now, if you want to find out about how to paint this model, then post in the comments below, and I'll create another episode. Otherwise, hopefully you've had fun and enjoyed making this silly alien character. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.